Hello and welcome to Sunday Conversations. I hope everybody's doing all right out there tonight. We've got a great show tonight because we've got a great guest. But joining me, of course, as always, is Jackie. How are you doing, Jackie?
Doing really good, thanks.
Good. So our guest tonight, everybody does know him, but he has been at it for 25 years, unbelievably, looking only like a spring chicken. So he said before. Some people call him the Sherlock Holmes of cryptozoology.
Oh god.
Where you you connect modern day encounters with ancient folklore. You really look into your stuff, and you can paint a picture of ethno-known beasts that might exist just beyond the edge of scientific discovery and the human imagination. A speaker, presenter, podcaster, field investigator. You're doing lots of stuff. Beasts of Britain you've got a new book out, which we will go into. And when you're not doing all that, you're looking at sunsets. You like to take lots of selfies because
Loads of selfies.
I do follow you. I mean, you take some good ones.
Moody ones, moody selfies.
Moody ones, a lot of the moody ones. But welcome, Andy McGrath.
The thing about the selfies, that you called me a smiler when I came onto the prep conversation earlier, and the thing about the selfies that's really important to me is I've always wanted to be sort of edgy and dangerous, and I'm not. I'm just kind of like nice and smiley. And so it's my one chance when nobody's around to sort of challenge my edginess, to look edgy, put it out there and hope that people sort of take it in and say, yeah, this guy's kind of grumpy and edgy and,
You manage to pull it off sometimes, almost.
I do have a bit of a resting London bitch face, kind of street face. Definitely. Going around, but it's not because I'm in a bad mood. It's just because I think it's like this Hordey's thing in my face just kind of dropped when I'm not using it.
Yeah. And, plus, it's always raining where you're at, isn't it?
Well, not so bad actually. I mean, London, not so bad. I've just come back from Wales, family visit to Wales where I grew up, and that's daily rain. It's proper rain in the mountains. And I said to my brother, raining. And he was like, yeah, of course. Well, why wouldn't it be raining?
Well, look, let's get into you brought out Beasts of Britain, great book. I've got one of the editions, not the new one, because I think the pigeon's still bringing it over to me from London. But it's a new edition. You've updated it. Why? What's in it now? What's in it now to read? And
I updated it because I signed a publishing deal with Hangar1 Publishing with Doug and Alex Hijack. You might remember Doug Hijack from Monster Quest. Created Monster Quest, and his son Alex have created this great publishing company. They're doing really interesting things for the authors and really supporting us. And I signed the publishing deal for my new book series, Beasts of the World. And it's a 7-part series. And they said, well, would you like to publish Beasts of Britain with us as well? I said, well, it's already published. It's the 2nd edition that's out. But, as per normal, I hate it because I've had it for 2 years now. And now that I've had it for 2 years, I don't like it anymore. And there's stuff in there I don't want to be in there anymore. And I wanted to sort of change it up a bit. So they said, yeah, okay, do a new one then. And I spent 2 months rewriting it. Perhaps making some of the theories and thought processes a little more clear and succinct, and less, Andy, Hugh Grant waffle talk in a circle logic. And I took about 120 pages out and added, I think, a further 150 pages to it. So the new book is actually longer and new sightings, new chapters, that kind of thing as well. A specific theory section at the end of each chapter, and just thought, okay, I like it now. Finally, since 2017 to that point in 2021, I now like this book, and I'm happy to leave it and never touch it again, or even talk about British cryptids or anything, as I've been doing since 2017 non-stop. In fact, even before I started writing the book, and before I published the book, I was interviewing about it from late 2016 onwards. And say, yeah, I'm writing this book, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to be like that. And I was putting blogs out from the book at the time as well. And it was just like a really messed up way to write something when you've never written, by interviewing your way all the way through it and then publishing something at the end, which was, I was happy about it for a first edition, but I'm just that kind of guy, as the years go on, I become more and more horrified by what
I
by
think,
what I've produced, and I just have to do something about it, and I did. I
mhm,
changed it, but that's the last time, I promise.
yeah. I think it's a work in progress, isn't it, when you're putting this stuff
Hmm.
together, and also like a testament to your research, because you're not just, you know, putting out, oh, this is a cryptid, this is where it at. You're actually looking into why would it be there? What's the background? What's the area? I mean, you really kind of put a lot into it. And these things don't just happen overnight, do they? They take
No.
hours and days and years and and it's kind of not an easy thing just to write and put out and go, this is it. But it's great that you can update and edit, and there's absolutely
Yeah.
nothing wrong in that, because
No.
things change and
Absolutely.
things evolve.
There,
And
and there's things in there in the original books that I said that I disagree with, or I found since to be untrue, or the sightings I found later to be hoaxes, and I had to correct that, or just take it out altogether. Um, but with the most recent version, I just tried to, and I adopted that philosophy for the new book series as well. Just try to offer a few more balanced theories that weren't preferential to me, things I didn't maybe feel very positive about, but it was a common theory about this type of cryptid or this situation, and why not put those in? I mean, people they do need a balance, and I think what changed in that first book, the last edition, and it was an important thing that I learned. I stopped defending it as a subject that I had to prove somehow, and said, okay, actually, don't defend it, because that's like saying you don't know. So don't defend it, just present it, which is, I guess, what everybody else had been doing, but I hadn't been doing that. just present it, and then whether you're right or wrong, these are just the common theories.
yeah, like you say, people have to make their own minds up as well, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
On these encounters. What do you think, Jackie?
I think it's a lot easier to digest when people are given the information and they're able to decide for themselves
Mm.
what they think. A lot of times when they're given an opinion, sometimes it comes off, a little strong, and especially if they have their own, you know, bias or whatever on the subject, sometimes they'll just disregard whatever just because it doesn't match what they believe. And so when you're giving it in that kind of format too, it kind of opens it up for more people to accept that information, I think, as well.
I think you've hit the nail on the head completely, Jackie. And that's how I started to feel about it for a long time. Identifying my own philosophical bias, things I wanted, like for Nessie, for instance. I'm really into lake monsters, so I'd want that to be true. So I have a preferential outlook on the information that's presented, the sightings that are presented, whereas I might be a bit tougher on the dogman crowd, perhaps, or something else that I don't really care about so much. Um, and yeah, that really stood out to me. And actually, one of the curious things I found out from this public foray into cryptozoology, because I was always researching and following from as a private person that nobody knew, was that there's something religious about the different types of philosophies, and when you do stake a claim to a certain viewpoint or opinion, actually you can occasionally offend somebody from a religious perspective.
Yeah.
Because somebody just rocked up and said to you, well, actually, your God's not real in a way. The thing that you believe in is rubbish, and what I believe in is actually the one. So, why don't you join us here with the good guys? And then people get incensed. And I've had some absolutely insane arguments over the years. And being a religious person, married to another religious person from a different religion, I was suddenly like, oh, okay, this is religious. Superficially, not as they don't have like a liturgy or anything, well, not yet. But yeah, if you treat people with that kind of consideration, perhaps give them that consideration instead of just saying, well, you think that because clearly you're an idiot and you're mental and whatever else. and I'm on the right side. I don't do that anymore, thankfully, and it's worked out really well. No more
I mean,
fights.
agreeing to disagree. If that could be done a little bit more
Yeah, wow.
without all
What a
the
world we live in.
fisticuffs and you know these
Mm.
ongoing tirades, it's just ridiculous, isn't
Amazing.
it?
Amazing.
I know nothing about that.
No, me.
No. Me think if ladies does protest too much. Is that the line?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away from, though.
Yeah.
You know, there's resistance everywhere, and you know, it's really sad that you know, you can't think, someone can't think your opinion is just as important as theirs.
Yeah.
Why is one better than the other when we don't know any facts? We don't actually know anything. So it's a little bit silly, isn't it? Pretending that you know
It's
more than
weird.
somebody else, and we don't know.
We don't know, but it's very the genre sometimes is very taut. There's this great fraternity. By the way, people who really get on, and in the past 2 years, I found a bunch of people I really get on with who are just genuinely out there looking for stuff and trying to be unbiased as far as they can. But the scene sometimes is really sort of tense, and occasionally these days on some of my pages, I'll just have a little joke with people. I don't mean mock them or play a joke on them. I just mean be a bit light-hearted with some of the comments. And I'll mention something that happened today, and I hope if the person who said it's listening, they don't get the wrong impression. What their response to me actually sort of proved to me that things are so tense that the person felt that I was just digging at them instead of just sort of being a bit light. So there was a Loch Ness monster sighting yesterday or the day before. Somebody videoed what appears to be two humps and a wake in the loch. It's from a distance, and as per usual, you can't really make much out. It could be a boat or something. And somebody just commented on the post. Oh, well, I mean, that's just two humps. It could be anything. Sure, it could be, but it's it's a listed sighting, so that's why it's there. And I replied, "What if it was three humps? Could we get you on board for three?" and and it's a little, but I just mentioned it's sort of a jolly way to say, yeah, it is just two humps. It could be anything, but the whole point is it's in Loch Ness, so it could also be something, and that's why we posted. And doesn't it sound silly to say it's just two humps? What if it's three? And the person was like, well, no, I'm a big fan of this, and I do want to believe, but this could be anything. I'm not, no, I totally agree with you. It could be anything. It's too far away to discern. I'm just, just being a bit light.
A crazy one, isn't it? Because I mean, how many actual sightings?
Of thousands, like thousands.
But of how much? I mean, of how good are these sightings?
It depends. I mean, some of them are just still like the upside down boat formation that you see, almost like an upturned boat that's swimming around. Some are just strange ripples in the water. Some are back, head, and neck at close quarters. Others are land sightings of a fully fully visible creature that looks plesiosaur-like in some way.
Wow.
A long neck, small head, 4 flippers, long tail, 20-something feet long. It's been seen on land several times. Not much, but it has been over the years. Again, it's a difficult thing to work out because Loch Ness, I always describe it as an aging cryptozoological Coney Island.
Right.
Because it's kind of got that feel to, it's a bit knackered and old, and it's been going for ages, and there's not a lot there actually, and everybody comes. Similar to like the London ghost tour and the ghost bus, you go past the black bus with the ghosts on it, and you go to all these places that have had legitimate sightings of ghosts, yet at the same time, the likelihood of you seeing one on the ghost bus is small, isn't it? And maybe it's the same for Loch Ness. Everybody's going there looking for something, and when you're looking for something, you're likely to see something that presents as the thing you're looking for. That's one of the big dangers. Of course it is. So
and it's so easy to see, and I'm not trying to take away anyone's experience, but
No.
it's so easy to see stuff in water through waves, especially up
Oh,
there. How
it moves
kind
weirdly.
of
The water moves really weirdly. Yeah.
it's got form to it, hasn't it? It's got like textures to it.
There's some weird
and stuff.
undercurrent. The different layers and levels of the temperatures and currents apparently, and it does give it this weird sort of choppiness. The wind comes in and hits it. It's quite narrow, while a mile wide at the widest, I think. So it's quite narrow, and this big wind comes through that big rift and makes it move strangely as well as the wakes. One of the big passenger, one of the big Loch Ness cruise boats. I remember seeing from up on the hill near Fort Augustus. One of the cruisers go past, one of the really big cruisers, and then about 3-4 minutes after it left, the wakes were still hitting the shore and still sort of
Wow.
running out. And I thought, what if somebody just came here like 2 minutes ago after the cruiser had long gone? What would they see?
Yeah.
Big wakes. So yeah, it's a strange thing. I personally believe that there's something there at least some of the time. Some of the sightings are very, very good.
So have you managed to form a pattern with the time of sightings seasonally, or is there a reason why Nessie, if it is Nessie, would want to leave those waters and come back into Loch Ness?
I think it could coincide with feeding habits, salmon runs, and the like. Most of the sightings, by the way, are near inver villages, river mouth villages, and a lot of them happen when there's been a very low rainfall year because there's more insects. And when there's low rainfall, there's more insects. When there's more insects, there's more fish. And so you have a greater yield of fish, in a sense, that survive for them to feed on. And a lot of the sightings, a friend of mine worked this out for me, actually, and I put it in the book, are near these inver villages where, of course, when the fish, salmon, and trout come out into the deeper water from the rivers, they'd be vulnerable suddenly to a predator. And it was really strange that in the southeast end of the loch, I believe it is, where there was no river, there were no sightings at all. And that would make sense. The fish follow these river systems all around the loch, and where they're entering the loch, it would appear that those monsters are there waiting for them on occasion. And in years where there's low rainfall, there's higher sightings. Yeah.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting. And
I was just because I've never been up there. I would like to go up there. It does look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's just stunning place, isn't it? And you'd want to go anyway just to see.
Oh yeah.
If you could see Nessie, I don't know what that is. Some old castle, is it?
That's Castle Urquhart. Yeah,
right.
Castle Urquhart. And it's that actually there have been a lot of sightings from the castle. Now, whether that's because they have a lot of visitors, so there's a greater proportion of people available to sight the creature or not, I don't know.
But it's there where that blur is.
Yeah. It's there with the blurs. It's a strange thing. The one thing that a lot of people don't get about the loch is that the road that they put in, the ring road around it, actually only goes over one side primarily. A lot of those areas that it passes through are obscured. A lot of parts of the other side of the loch actually go up into the hills, and it's forested, heavily forested on the sides as well. So there's plenty of places for something to be with no people there. You can't access and see every part of the loch from where you are. And at night, goodness, when I was last there, I sat down by the water's edge at night. I also walked along one of the rivers, the River Oich, at night, and it's pure British countryside. It's probably the same in Alaska, actually, Jackie. You cannot see a thing but stars. It's just blackness. Yeah. And I realized when I was sitting there, if this creature was in the water next to me at this very moment, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't see it. And so, is there plausibility for more of a nocturnal presence? I don't know, but it certainly could easily move through the rivers at night without being seen at all.
That's
assuming it got the journey done overnight.
It's fascinating, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
any sightings on the other side of the loch, or any other place? I mean, has Loch Ness ever been seen anywhere else?
You mean on the other side of the loch? Yes, yes. So in the
Or how far
in
out? I mean, maybe
well,
around that area.
there's sightings right down to the River Ness, and also in the Moray Firth, which the River Ness empties into. There's sightings on the other side in Loch Eel and Loch Lean, which are the sea lochs that it empties out to in the east and west. And I did have a whole section in the book here, so I'll just get the actual facts up for you just to make it a bit easier there. I'm just absolutely terrible without my stats in front of me.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. But yeah, it is a beautiful place.
Okay.
Nessie
So
is like the first cryptid that most people are become familiar with too. I mean, usually that's like what do you consider the gateway cryptid?
It's
it is.
a pretty big name, isn't it? It's a pretty famous one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially for us in the UK. So I never really thought about. I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it? Obviously, you've heard about it over there.
Oh
it's
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. I grew up fascinated by it. Just
And the other thing, Jackie, as well, is that you'll find that there are sort of similar creatures named in emulation of it all over the world. You know, like the Japanese Issei and Cheney and all these other
Alaska has one in Lake Iliamna. So,
Iliamna.
yeah.
More like a giant fish of some kind, right?
Oh yeah, they haven't
Yeah.
quite figured out what it is. Yeah.
Looks
I
huge.
believe
I
it
remember.
might be a giant sturgis or something, you know. Yeah, there's lots of different.
Whatever that thing is, it is absolutely enormous. Of course, you know the romantic in me wants it to be like a Dunkleosteus or something like that, but like a big prehistoric fish. But I doubt it's that. Talking Daniel and Jackie about these exits to and from the sea on both sides. So in Beasts of Britain, there's a little chapter called the Traveling Nessie Theory. Basically, postulating there that the creature moves frequently between lochs, the rivers, and the sea, under the cover of darkness, and whatever the reason for the journey is, whether it be if it's just a roaming behavior or whether it's to seek out food sources in different places, I don't know. But it does seem to have a sort of a territorial roaming behavior, and I think that's supported slightly by only 2% of the sightings being of more than one animal at the same time. Seems to be solitary most of the time, or at least the creatures we see are traveling alone at that time. Now, in the east of the loch, you can reach the sea via the River Ness, and that empties into the confluence between Beauly Firth and Moray Firth. And although there's shallow areas of the river, the water's only a few feet deep, there's also plenty of places where the creature could make a small foray overland. I mean, rocky areas, and still get to the sea under the cover of darkness. And there's some evidence for that, with some sightings that have happened in the River Ness. So I think in 1934, Miss K. MacDonald saw the creature between Loch End and Abriachan, and she saw like a drab, brownish-coloured hump rising out of the water about 40 yards away, and then it changed shape, this hump, and flattened out, and into two humps situated at either end of the body, and was making a big splashing and undulating motion. And there was another one in 1965 in the centre of town of Inverness when the river was in flood in spate. There was heavy rainfall, and Mr. George McGill was standing in the YMCA building looking out at the river at 11:45 a.m. and saw this large neck with a thick ridge neck looping out of the water about 4.5 feet and 8 inches in diameter. swimming to the loch, and that that shows at least at some points, whether it's when the river's in flood or in heavy rain periods, that the creatures can move or do move into that river system at least. And there's also monsters in the Beauty Firth where the loch enters out. They've been seen. There was a description from 1955 of a woman seeing an animal with a head like a dragon and 3 black humps on a long undulating body, and it goes on basically. That's how it can go on and on and on.
Very intriguing.
Yeah, and it's the same in the West. I won't go into all of the sightings in the West as well. There are several, and the journey from that end at least seems to be a lot more complicated. You have to go through the River Oich and Loch Oich and the Loghan Lochs and Loch Lochy, the River Lochy, bypassing Neptune's staircase and entering Loch Eel, which empties into the sea via Loch Lean. So there is a way, although it's complicated. There are several other lochs along the way that are joined to Loch Ness that people don't think about that have sightings, like Loch Oich and Loch Lochy, that it could also stop off in along the way, I guess.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And it's a shame that it's not just in one place. And they could do a scan. I mean, they have done, haven't they? The riverbed,
several.
The lake. I mean, and it's very deep as well in places, isn't it? So it's just impossible, isn't it? I guess to really.
It is murky. It's full of peat, the water. I mean, you really, really can't see your hand in front of your face. And I think there's Loch Morar, which is not too far away, not connected, but not too far away. It has sightings. It's a much better location. The water is crystal clear. There's a short sort of river, I think it's a few miles long, that leads to the sea. So there's a really good explanation for the presence of a creature as well, if you like, or a get out of jail free card to explain the presence of a creature. And at least you could see what you're doing. But Loch Ness, it's just it's a blackout. Even with lights, you can't see very far in front of your sub or whatever you're using.
I remember them a show. I don't remember what channel or what it was, but they had cameras down in there and trying to locate it. And you couldn't see nothing. As soon as something moved, it was even worse.
Yeah, I mean and it kicks up all of the silt, and it's really a terrible location for a monster. Yeah, a great one for a monster, but a terrible one for monster hunters, I suppose.
You could just imagine Nessie just following this boat around.
Exactly. And again, I mean, I wasn't using the FLIR or what's the other camera called? Not the sensitive one, but forget. Anyway, forget it. I got one anyway somewhere. Yeah, but even at night, it would be difficult to spot something, even with those cameras. Assuming the creature gives off any kind of heat signature to begin with. Who knows? And just sitting next to that loch and realizing that if something really was there, it could come right up on me and I would not see a thing. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Walking along the river, and as it got dark, I thought, I can't see anything anymore, anywhere. This is proper rural countryside. It's just blackness.
Very edgy. You should take your selfies at that point, shouldn't you? Where you're feeling.
I took a few. It's just a black square.
Well, look, let's move on to your new kind of like your new set of books you're doing. It's a 7-part series, and you started this one, Beasts of the World, and the volume 1 is Hairy Humanoids. Which is a great one for Bigfoot Odyssey, because you must be talking Bigfoot or Wild Man and the big one. Right. Why did you start with that one first?
Well, I thought it would be the most popular to begin with, and also it was the subject I was most interested in at that time. And one of the things I realized when I actually first started to write a Beast of the World entire book, and started putting and only get all of my chapters together, and I stopped dumping research in them, basically, to come and write later. And I realized I had about 1,000 pages of research just for this entire book with all these different cryptids in. I thought, oh, I can't do that. That's sort of insane. Nobody's going to read a 1,000-page book. I'm not going to read it if I read it either. It's just too long. So can you split it up, perhaps? And then the hairy humanoids was the first one that really stuck out to me, and it was because I was looking at all these great authors and researchers from around the world, from the last 60, 70 years, and just kind of realizing, we all think of Bigfoot as one thing, like the Sasquatch, the North American Bigfoot. That's what we think of as being Bigfoot. But what if there's an even greater assortment of hairy humanoids out there and outside of North America as well? And I heard of different things over the course of years, and wanted to look, further into them. And I was thinking, well, what if there are two different types or three different types sharing a similar geographic area that have similar appearances, but actually are subcategories or subspecies of one another in a way. So, we looked at the man-ape type of Bigfoot that's like the Sasquatch, essentially. It's massively built, it's got its hair covered, it's upright and bipedal, 7 to 9 feet tall. It's got those large, wide, flat feet that we're used to seeing in all of the Bigfoot casts from North America, without the arch, but with that strange midfoot flexibility, the mid-tarsal ridge. Yeah. Now that's the one we're all used to, isn't it? That's the one we think of all the time. But then there's another type that maybe the woodwows or the almasti correspond to more like a wild man, more like a Neanderthal-like, caveman-like creature, still hair covered but bipedal, often with distinct head hair, separate to its body, human-like feet, only broader overall, and matching fossilized tracks that were attributed to Neanderthal. And I thought, well, that's amazing. That's another type again. And then we looked at the Yeti, and I thought, well, the Yeti's more like a relic ape, isn't it? It's often quadrupedal, not always bipedal. It has, as opposed to it's smaller in size again, 5.5 feet to 7.5 feet, and more ape-like in its face, and it has a divergent medial toe. At least the tracks that people have seen would indicate that. So it doesn't have a flat foot or a human-like foot. It has this ape-like foot in a way, something that suggests it's more arboreal or is adapted to climbing trees or mountain slopes. And it just went on from there. And I won't go into all the different types, but I included Littlefoot and a monkey monster type and a dogmen as well, because I thought that was related to the monkey monsters, and more of an ambiguous category at the end of amphibious anthropoids, man-like creatures or hairy-like creatures of varying descriptions that have been seen in aquatic environments. I thought, well, there's a book. Let's look into these and see what we have.
Yeah, it's interesting because they do all get thrown into the same pot, even though different names. People have tended to just throw these things as the same creature. I've always thought about woodwows, and it's never, the forest wild man, never thought of it as Bigfoot. It just, the way it's depicted, the face, the story, about it being part, being of the woods. For me, it's not a Bigfoot. So, are people seeing woodwows? Or was woodwows just folklore? Did it have any substance to it?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly seems to have been a substance to it at some point. Whether the people in Britain, for example, or Europe had actually seen them or inherited the stories of what they looked like, I don't know. There is some mythology mixed up with that as well. Clearly some of their representations, especially the club-carrying ones, would probably seem very similar to the personage of Hercules, in the Greek pantheon, or even Sylvanus, the shepherd, the shepherd god and all these satyrs and fauns from old Greek legend, although those themselves could be depictions of these creatures, deifications of these creatures. And so I didn't actually look at the woodwoes themselves for this new book because I covered it so extensively in Beasts of Britain. But I looked at other types of woodwoes, if you like, and I looked at the almasty and the research of Marie-Jean Kaufmann in the Caucasus Mountains. And she recently died, I think, at 101, 102. An amazing researcher, and other people like Boris Pozhnev and Dmitry Bayanov, who is these people have done stellar research for years upon years in Russia and all of the surrounding areas, in Central Asia and Europe. I just thought this is really amazing. There was such great detailed sightings from the locals there that they just described them in such a matter-of-fact way. They were clearly existing alongside them to some degree, and the stories of their interactions are just wonderful, really, really wonderful. And there was more. There's Geordie Magruner, you might remember, the researcher who was killed in near Afghanistan in the Chitral region, and he describes a similar creature in that area. Again, Neanderthal-like, human-like in a way, man-sized or slightly larger. And I just wanted to at least try to point out that difference in this book. There appears to be a difference, whether it's a difference as we would see in bears of, polar bear, panda bear, black bear, brown bear, sun bear, etc. Who knows if it's that close, or maybe they're completely distinct species that just have a similar presentation.
Yeah, and when like Alaska has many tales of an otter man, and that is that's another subject. Like it seems like the further I start digging, it's like an onion. It just there's so many layers that start appearing, and you're like, I had never heard of these stories, and then you find out that they've been weaved for so long in a lot of the lore of many of the natives in Alaska. And so they're the ability for us to just dismiss so much because we figure that's their lore and it's all make believe and they don't know what they're talking about. That's been done for so long, and it's quite rude. On a lot of reasons, but I think we've got a lot to learn from many elders.
So.
We really do.
I think so too. But with the dismissal of their stories, I think we have to realize that we've done it to our own culture as well, in the sense of we also have extensive myths and folklore, even white Canadians and white Americans, the background cultures they come from, they've brought that folklore with them, over the years, and it's dismissed as folklore. We have tales of a little folk here in the Orkney Isles called the Trows. Trows is kind of a gnome-like creature, like a little person of a type. That could very possibly be real. It seems very similar to some elements of the Holder folk legends from Iceland. It clearly has that Norse influence that was brought over from there. As to whether they were real creatures or not, we don't know. And I think it's reasonable when people say fairies or whatever to just say, oh yeah, folklore, that's what that is, and not always assume that it's a real creature, because the folklore is definitely a factor. It's definitely a factor, and it's hard to pull those things apart sometimes, especially when you encounter cultures, and that even happens it used to largely happen a lot in Ireland as well, or places like Iceland, where the folklore is still living. The belief has a sort of an Easter Bunny sort of style realism to it, where it's taken seriously and not seriously all at once in a sort of flippant way. As many things like the fairies, the elves in Iceland, or fairies in Ireland are taken even in this current day. And for the researcher like yourself or anybody else, it's just hard to say, okay, I want to take this person seriously. And yeah, it's very popular to honor people's cultural tellings these days. We just can't assume they're true, even if that sounds a bit patronizing at points. We've got to say, well, is this reimagined folklore? Has it been revivified for the present, or is there something in it?
I had Pat Noon from
Did
Ireland.
you?
I did. I
The,
had him on. He didn't
so
exist.
fairy farm, yeah,
And
yeah,
he's very far. He's a really
yeah.
nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
And
Yeah,
he believes what is going on there. I mean, it's been going on for years before
yeah.
him, his family, and, that land, and people go there, and there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. I
And
don't
who
know
are we to
what.
say there's not? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm just saying we can't take it at face value, because there's a respect of culture aspect to it. It's clearly part of Irish culture to a large degree, but we have to accept the limitations of that.
Yeah.
There's a preferential belief in it within the culture, so we've got to say, well, can't just take it at his word out of respect for his culture.
Mm.
Got to dig a bit deeper, disrespect him a bit.
This,
Kidding,
yeah.
but yeah.
No, yeah. There's some place. I mean, I guess there's places like this everywhere, but in England, especially for me, there's some places that are so raw. Some really raw places.
Yeah,
Now, that's the only way I can
yeah.
describe it, where you can feel like some ancient something, where
Things haven't changed there. The world
things
hasn't
haven't
arrived
changed.
there. Yeah,
Old
There's
growth forest.
boulders and rocks and
Yeah.
they're just magical places to look at, let alone there being anything there. I mean,
yeah.
the atmosphere in some of these locations makes you wonder what is going on there, what, magnetic force, maybe crystals. I mean, a lot can happen where these things are mixed together
Yeah.
with different elements. So, like you say, who knows? I mean, it's
And
fascinating.
I
that's
find
the
it.
major change. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, I find it interesting that people, when these different places, also speak, a lot quieter, and there's usually whispers instead of this loud, boisterous conversations. Like when you're walking through the redwoods or, different areas like that, usually people are talking in hushed tones,
But
Mm.
you think you're saying with a kind of respect for what's believed to dwell in the area.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just always
Yeah.
been fascinated by that. It's something I've picked up on when I was probably in my 20s and just kind of taken note of when I go to these certain places that, have this, feeling to it. It seems like the other people are just, it seems to have this presence or, like you're saying,
Like
and
a library feel almost. Oh, well,
yeah,
a church, like walking into
yeah,
a
yeah,
church, an old church.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah, no, I felt that in a few places, and um, it's just odd. I just suppose we talked about the religious aspect of this, and when we get into the folkloric side, of course, that's a really major component because there's religious practice or this cultural religious practice that is passed down to people, or even when they're not believing in something in certain cultures. I caught myself one time. I come from a sort of Catholic background family, but I'm not a Catholic. I often catch myself crossing myself when funeral cars pass, right? Exactly, and it's strange that I do it because it's sometimes I'll even stand to the side as they pass, and then before I've even checked myself, I think, well, that isn't a strange thing to do since you're
Yeah.
not a Catholic. But yeah, and I think that extends in certain places where the culture is still, let's say, more real. Ireland's definitely one of those places, or it was until recently. Iceland too, and other places around the world, especially when they're more archaic cultures that have been hidden from the advance of progress or whatever. That's that sort of made us all uniform in recent times. It's within every fiber of your being. You can't help but do it. And those things interest me more. What is it? Could those cultural, hereditary cultural tics, could they actually influence what you think you see and experience in day-to-day life?
It's not just religion, but superstition.
Yeah.
That can stop you from walking on the cracks in the pavement. Don't walk under the ladder. They're just built in. Oh no, I've just smashed a mirror. That's 7 years bad luck. We can take these things from lots of places, and actually it's ingrained in us without really thinking about, having to salute when you see a magpie. I don't do that because I know it's just nonsense to do.
They get offended by it, Danielle. Anyway, they're sick of the saluting now. They get really
offended by
tired
it.
of that. They're just like, come on, that's a stereotype.
I just wave now. I just wave now. Yeah, just wave at them. Look, how many? You've got 7 parts to this. What are the other? What are the other parts?
So there's the man apes. There's the wild men, and then there's the relic apes, which I did a big section in there on the Yeti, because of course you have to do that. And but also I equated that with the skunk ape of Florida and the Yosemite of South America as well. And I thought, they all seem to have this thing in common. They have more of an ape-like appearance. Sometimes they're quadrupedal, that they smell really bad. And yet these are different continents. These are different cultures. I have them. The thing with the Yeti was very, very interesting because, and in the beastly theory section, that forms a part of each one of these cases. I did look at. I did have a section. It was called like a theory, which is holy hucksters and superstitious Sherpas, and it was I know, and it was basically saying, could the legend of the Yeti simply be this corporatized superstition of the Lamas and the Sherpas? We've corporatized it and we foisted upon these impressionable Western tourists who would kind of keen to fetishize their folkloric overtones of their esoteric culture, which was very popular in the 50s, by the way. People in the West looking for America and Europe looking towards these esoteric cultures and religions for inspiration, right? And I wondered if Edmund Hillary's 1960 expedition could have concluded that the Yeti tracks were. But they did conclude the Yeti tracks were distortions of human footprints melted by the snow, and they also concluded that the Sherpas were unreliable because they didn't. Not only did they not distinguish the supernatural world from the real world, but they also used the word Yeti for so many different types of creatures, large creatures and bears and other things as well. And I wondered, could we have, as Westerners, mistaken the like the fake scalps that they had? Could we mistaken the traditional melding of the supernatural world and the real world as disingenuous? Or do we not understand that they have a duality, a belief about the habitation of the creatures, the Yeti creatures? So, in a sense, their faking of the scalp or their faking of the Yeti hand isn't really a fake to them, to the Lamas and the Sherpas. It's it's almost like a devotion to the deity and the presence of that deity. So it becomes real by their belief in it. It's not very well explained, but it is.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, there's something to it, isn't there? And
definitely,
but there's no smoke without fire.
No,
and
absolutely.
That's the interesting thing. This stuff comes from somewhere, and it's not just imagination. It forms from somewhere, and I'm sure you'll still be writing books for the next 25 years, maybe.
Yeah.
You're still on the search for these things. I'm just going to put a link now in the chat to your YouTube channel, because you do some great podcasts, some great interviews with people.
Thank you.
Really interesting. I do enjoy your what did you call them? The series of
Beastly Theories.
Beastly Theories. Yeah, and we'll go and check out some of Andy's podcasts. You'll recognise some people that he's interviewed, and some you won't recognise some, but they're all fascinating.
It's everywhere, by the way. It's on Audible and Amazon and Google and Apple. It's everywhere. You can just type it in, it'll pop up.
Yeah. I'm going to put a link as well to your new book in the chat as well, and I'll put it in the description after the show. And everyone go and, if you can, go check out Andy's book. They're really interesting reads, and I definitely enjoyed the edition I had. I can't wait for the next one in the post, maybe.
I'm definitely reading you, by the way. I'm reading between the lines.
Yeah, okay.
There's no lines.
I'll stop
like
now,
a big sign up, but I've got it.
Is it? I'm so subtle, aren't I? Well, look, it has been fascinating talking to you.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you on again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just touched the surface.
We have.
Yeah.
We can talk for hours, and we do sometimes, don't we? We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We don't even record it. It's always a shame we don't record the best bits.
Yeah, I know. Usually when you're walking around London and I'm
walking about my midnight walk,
cleaning
neighborhood. Yeah,
you'll ring and we'll put the world to rights when it comes to cryptids. But look, thanks again for coming on, because it's a late one for you as well. We're almost at midnight.
Yeah.
You'll be wanting to go to bed. I've got a show. If anyone's got nothing better to do, Hidden Existence is on tonight at 1:15 the hour. 1:15 the hour coming up, so we don't confuse everybody everywhere. But in the next 15 minutes, cheers, Andy. We'll definitely have you back on again, and appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, you too.
And Jackie, thank you again for joining me. We might be here, I think, on Tuesday with Drawing Bigfoot. I'll confirm it at some point for you guys. Thanks for everyone showing up. Hope you have a good evening, and hopefully I'll see you over on Hidden Existence in a few minutes. Good night, everyone.
Sounds good.